Hi.
Hello?
Are you
Hello?
able to hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Hold on, let me turn up my headphones a little bit. You're a little quiet.
I'll see if I can fix that. That happens a lot.
Uh, cool. How you doing?
Um, uh, I'm all right. How are you doing? It might be quiet for a few seconds. I don't know if it'll turn up or
No,
not.
it actually doesn't sound too bad.
All right.
Um, it may even be a little hot, but we'll see how it. Well, I can adjust some audio on my end, so we'll see how it goes. So just want to let you know I am recording,
Yeah, that's
because
fine.
I so not trying to like blindside you with that or anything. Just wanted to let you know. Um, cool. So just to kind of run through what I wanted to talk about, because I know I've already kind of discussed some things with you via email and everything, but I really just wanted to give you a chance to defend yourself because I thought that your Reddit post, I actually quite liked it. I thought it was really good, but you got a lot of pushback in the comments from your Reddit post, and then I think Jolts and B-Rad, who were guests on the episode that I did this on, I actually felt like they were a little harsh on you. To be fair, I thought I was pretty fair. I thought I agreed with you in some places,
Yeah, I
disagreed
agree.
with you, but I thought I was pretty fair overall. Um, I also think you're pretty funny, especially in the way that you write things. I think you have like a kind of a like a logical tone to you, like a philosophical kind of logical tone, which I
Thank you.
enjoyed. Um, yeah, and so I just thought we could kind of go through anything. So, is there anything you'd like to say starting off, or do you just kind of want to dive into some of the points?
Um, I guess the pretty much the only thing I can think of is the post. Well, I think you kind of know this, but the post was made within the context of people that sort of have the view or share the view that BO4 zombies is like some kind of disgrace or some kind of perversion of the mode or is
Mm,
some like horrible thing compared to BO3 when they're pretty similar and they have like similar quality, and I like always like for a while I found that rather strange. So that was what the post was sort of targeted against. It wasn't really just like criticisms against the game, just like it was about people that insist that the game is like a disaster basically. It also kind of similar to like what people like Mr. T Lexify say, where they'll say like it's worse than World at War or whatever, things like that. And then there's
mm-hmm.
also people that say that like they'll joke that Vanguard is better or something in order to like as like some kind of spite towards the game. It's like very
Like a
strange.
rage baity kind of
Yeah,
thing.
it's like it's the best way to describe it is spite. I was kind of like that. I was never really that hateful towards the game. Like I made like a joke about it before, but I always thought that Ancient Evil was like a top tier map. Even though I didn't like the game for like years, I always thought Ancient Evil was extremely good. But yeah, I guess that's all I have to say.
So you started off not liking BO4, like when it first came out.
So when it released, I didn't really have people to play it with really. I I wasn't really hyped for it getting into it because I wasn't really a fan of BO3 that much at the time until like
Okay.
2021. And I found it just kind of annoying. It was mostly the AI. I was not used to the zombie AI. People never talk about this, but the zombie AI in BO4 is like way different than like kind of like significantly different than BO3, and it kind of like threw me off, and like some of the derivative stuff like kind of was annoying. And I didn't learn the maps that well, and I also basically didn't even play Dead of the Night until like many years later.
Yeah. I mean, the AI is different. I think one thing people will talk about pretty frequently in terms of the AI being bad, it's like when you want to train zombies, they kind of spawn in front of you. But I think it's more than that. Like just the kind of the way that you you draw them to you or the way that you kind of train them up. They do behave differently. The way they hit you and swipe and everything. It's all a little different. But yeah, I mean, I will say, even though I was more of a kind of like middle of the road slash defender of the aspects of your post, I wouldn't have really gotten that first part from it. Like, kind of coming from like the foundation of your argument, I wouldn't have really gotten it from saying like like I understand what you're saying about like BO4 is peak and the downfall of zombies is come from rejecting it. I get that premise, but it doesn't. I'm glad that you cleared that up because that makes a
Yeah.
lot more sense. And but I can understand why you wouldn't have like outright put that because it is a good post. It gets people's attention. It got people talking. Got us linked up and everything. So I think you did good work by putting it together in the way that you did.
Yeah, it was pretty much meant to be like the ultimate post basically, so I didn't waste much time talking about it at length that much more. I just wanted it to be like one large post addressing like major things that people would say.
Got it. Okay. Well, I okay. Let's just kind of go over some. I don't think we'll have time to go over every post, like all 19 points, because there's a lot of points here.
Yeah.
But there are a couple things that I would like to just get a little more of an elaboration on, if that's all right with you.
Yeah, sometimes some things I can think of I didn't really elaborate on. I kind of just said stuff and didn't continue
No, it's okay.
in
I
the
mean,
post.
that's why we're here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and thank you for your time, by the way. I do appreciate it. I know you got a busy life, and so I do appreciate that. Um, the one of the things that you said in the opening was the fan base in general does not deserve a good zombies game as they clearly value nostalgia above all else and resist even the most of moderate innovations. Um, so after kind of reading that, how do you feel about BO or like Cold War to like BO6? How do you feel? Do you think we're getting not a good zombies game? How do you think we're getting what we deserve? Do you think BO6 is a good step in the right direction? Like how does that line kind of fit in with your mentality now?
I'm glad you brought that up early on, because I it's really weird. So I hated BO4 originally, but I didn't like hate the entire thing. For me, like Cold War and Vanguard and stuff, I just don't. I never found anything interesting about them really at all. Especially Vanguard. Vanguard is literally like beyond painful to play.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Cold War, I just found it very weird that they were like kind of continuing the Ether storyline, and having I don't know. It was just really weird having like Samantha and stuff, and then the amount of hits you can take is like way too much, and like the armor was really weird, and the whole pretty much my to state it like more succinctly or whatever. My opinion on BO6 and such is that it's sort of partially very different, but it's also extremely derivative. And the main issue with the gameplay for me, other than it being derivative, is that the whole point of it is that pretty much the only way you can die is if you get utterly overwhelmed. It's not like the other games like BO4 and BO3 where you just like you you do a lot of damage to the zombies, but they do a lot of damage to you, and you kind of just run around and just dodge them. In Cold War and such, it's just like frantic, and they hit you so many times, and you just have to have them absolutely flooded all over the room in order to die. So that's pretty
Mm-hmm.
much my opinion on it. And I pretty much never play the recent games. I went back to BO6 like a couple times, 3 times or something. And I have a 30-minute rant after playing the Tomb for the first time. There was a 30-minute rant of me just absolutely shitting all over the game, and it was incredibly hilarious. I've watched that like 5 times. It is incredible that video, that rant.
Did you put it on YouTube?
Yeah, it's on YouTube. The title is the most clickbaity title, rage baity title of all time. It's so it's me playing the Tomb for the first time, and the title is "The Burial Site of a Series That's Dead to Me" is what it's called.
Bro, you're
Absolutely perfect.
you're actually pretty good at the rage bait titles. You should start a business and help
Yeah,
content creators with their titles. Okay. So if you're like, I mean, if you like BO4 and BO3 and whatnot, it sounds like you probably like Easter eggs and main quests.
yeah.
Would that be fair? Okay, so I do too, and it, and that's actually let's put a pin in that. One of the things I wanted to say about the BO6 like gameplay stuff that you were talking about is like the you're right. You do get the kind of like overly swarmed by stuff, and that's like really the only way you can kind of get go down. In some instances, I'm sure like an amalgam will kind of hit me or whatever. But like I was just playing the other day, and I was trying to like run back through Terminus to do something, and I got hit like 13 times, or I got hit a bunch of times, and I
Yeah.
still wasn't going down. But there are elements of that in BO1 and or excuse me BO4 and BO3 with maybe Widow's Wine or having your shield on your back or whatever. Granted, that stuff can break and you can run out of Widow's Wine and Winter's Wail, so it's not exactly comparable. Like, but
Yeah,
there have always
Victorious Tortoise
Victorious Tortoise
on
as
Ancient
well.
Evil.
there's always there's basically always kind of been systems and zombies that have allowed for an overabundance of hits, but it does seem to be a little bit excessive in BO4 because it's because you have armor that can constantly be replenished. So it's not like it depletes as significantly as like if your shield breaks and you have to get back to a shield crafting table, or your Winter's Wail ends and you have to like wait for it to replenish or get some sort of power up. I forget, or no, maybe it was a elixir that could replenish it. But either way, yeah. So it sounds like you like quests as well. So let's kind of veer into that because I do want to be cognizant of the time here. Uh, and I personally think that Dead of the Night is one of the best zombies maps of all time. Definitely S tier in my top five for sure. I think it has one of the greatest Easter eggs. I think it can be done at a very low round if you want to optimize it. I think it can be done in a very at a very good casual pace where it gets you into like the 20s and 30s if you want to kind of just like kill shit and just kind of enjoy your time and not really think about it. I think that it's actually not really as difficult as people make it out to be because it's really just it's a very linear quest, and it allows you to kind of go about things in a very I really enjoy the pacing of it, and you kind of once you kind of figure out the way it works for you, you can kind of repeat that process over and over again. And it's really just about memorizing areas of the map rather than all those ridiculous itemized locations that people will kind of straw man the Easter egg to be.
Yeah.
But I'm almost done, I promise. So basically, this leads me to your point where it says Dead of the Night is the greatest experience in gaming, and this is something you actually brought up to me in the email, and I was just wondering what did you mean by that? And if we could go over that point, I think that would be really helpful.
Oh yeah, yeah. In that video of yours, yeah, you guys thought that you guys kind of like assumed that I meant like better than like video games or whatever, like Elden Ring or whatever. But what I meant is, but when I said experience in gaming, I just meant like a thing in a game or like a level in a game. Like another experience I would bring up is the final boss of Sekiro gave me this feeling when I beat it that like no other game has given me. It was like this really weird like cathartic sort of like epic kind of feeling that I had, and Dead of the Night is like about on that level as well. Like it's just like a very pleasant experience in a game is what kind of
Got
what
it.
I meant.
So it's more like just from the systems and gameplay design, like the way that it it's up, the way that it's designed and put together. It just is one of those peak experiences, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah, I can't relate because since it's a COD Zombies map, I would have to compare it to levels to of other games or like areas to other games, and I haven't really played any games where like because obviously like just one location from like Elden Ring or a battle royale game or just a level from a single player game is not really going to be better than Dead of the Night because it's an entire COD Zombies map and it's my favorite one.
Yeah. Is it your favorite map of all time or
Yeah, one probably the most like outrageous thing I said in the post was that when I said that I genuinely find Dead of the Night I like it more than the entirety of World at War through Black Ops 2 combined.
hmm? Did you say that? Maybe you said that in a later statement. I don't see it
Yeah,
in the first part.
yeah, I remember you like you reading it. Yeah, just the reason I say that is just cuz I kind of find like I don't really play World at War on Black Ops 1 and Black Ops 2 much just cuz a lot of the maps are either remastered or I just kind of view them as like bland and
Yeah, I'm
such.
not a big fan of BO2 either. I was going back and playing it recently, and I just don't really enjoy it. I like the Blundell maps, but I think he really hit his stride in BO3 and BO4. Um, okay, so we have the next couple of points in your post were about switching out perks mid game or the worst graphical fidelity. Is there anything you'd like to hit on more than actually how about I just kind of read through them and then you can tell me which ones you'd like to kind of clear up.
Okay.
So the second one was switching out perks mid game. The next one after that was graphical fidelity worse than BO3. And then the HUD is bad would be the following one after that. Does any of those
Um.
strike your fancy? Do you have the
Hey.
post pulled up? I can drop it in the
Oh.
chat for you if you'd like.
I can. Oh, I think I can find it on my phone real quick. So I don't really post that much
Here,
on Reddit, so I think I can.
I put it in the chat if you want to.
Um,
I kind of would like to hear what you'd have to say about the graphics. BO4 has worse graphical fidelity or looks worse than BO3. Take a look at Blood of the Dead and then look at Gorod Crovey. BO3 textures are smeared and blurry. Ambient occlusion and lighting is worse. Colors are worse. General map detail is worse. Sound design is also worse. Then this was a good one. The Giant is the worst looking map of
oh.
all time.
Yeah, yeah, that's the one that stood out for me most in your video or whatever. Um, for some reason, I didn't elaborate on that because like I thought it was obvious, not as like an insult to people, but like the way that it looks to me is like very it's incredibly. I haven't played it on my new monitor and it has like saturation turned up. I haven't played it on here yet. It's like a decently better monitor. But the colors are incredibly saturated in a way that's really off-putting to me, and the combination between the like dark the darkness and the like blue and like kind of black with the extremely strong orange like flames in the windows and such and in the background like just comes off as really weird to me, and it like I just really don't like it, especially since like back then when Der Eisendrache released, I thought it was kind of strange that they had like another snowy map in a row, and um yeah, I don't know. It was just I just thought it was kind of bland. The Giant.
Interesting. I kind of understand what you're talking about. I do disagree. I think the Giant's actually quite pretty. I love the kind of gray, cool palette that it has going on. And I love those little pockets of orange that you just kind of see in your peripherals as you're killing the zombies. I also love snow maps. So like I mean, I'd take a whole game covered in snow, honestly, if they did it. Um, but I actually think though that BO4 gets a really bad rap for its graphics in general. Like it has some of the best looking graphics of all time. I think this
Yeah.
is just some of the issue with Treyarch is like they always try to max out the consoles that they're working on. So BO2 was not able to, be managed on the last or the PS3 Xbox 360 generation, and BO4 was not able to be utilized well on the PS4 Xbox One generation. So because I honestly thought the graphics looked pretty bad on console myself when I first played it. But something I didn't account for was the map density. So the density of the maps in BO4, they're littered with like so many. There's just so much shit in the maps. There's so much shit. It's just such a dense experience. Like everywhere you look, there's scattered debris or
Yeah.
blood or oil or bodies or like boxes or whatever. And then the maps also you can like see out of them for a while too. And in BO3 and before they didn't really do that stuff as well. But on PC, if you play BO4, it's so beautiful. It's absolutely crazy. So I really did agree with that point quite a bit. Um, and then I'd actually like to jump down to point number 5, if you don't mind. BO4 has crutch perks, lol. They
Oh
tried
yeah.
to fix the crutch perk issues and didn't solve anything. This is kind of like a common complaint, I think, is what you were saying. Um, and this is actually where I think my co-hosts that day and I got a little. We had a lot of disagreements because I personally think that BO4 doesn't really have crutch perks. I think you can kind of swap things out. Or wait, I can't remember exactly what I said. It wasn't really mostly about the crutch perks. Or no, wait, I think they said that they did think it has crutch perks like Dying Wish and stuff, and I said that I thought it had a pretty good variety because the like jug is baked into the player, self revives are baked into the player, speed cola is baked into the player, double taps baked into the player, and so you had all this access to variety. And maybe I said there were some kind of more overpowered perks like stamina up with the modifier, but I actually don't find myself relying on anything else other than really stamina up. I think you could use Dying Wish or Winter's Wail or Electric Burst, which I love. Um, Victorious Tortoise, all the other ones. So, is there anything you'd like to say about that?
I would say that I have a really specific definition of what a crutch perk is. A lot of people don't really think about it, but for me, I would say a crutch perk is kind of just like a bland perk that you kind of feel obligated to use every single time, and it it kind of just exists for the sake of progression, but there can be other ways of progression like having death perception or like AATs or whatever. Things like Juggernog and Double Tap 2, I kind of just find they make the game unbalanced because of the fact that whenever you down with them and you lose them, you have like round 1 health, and you have like it's just very dull, and it makes the game have inconsistent balance. And then that's in combination with the fact that quick revive revives you in BO3. Like, you revive yourself with quick revive, but then you don't have jug, so you're using a perk to revive yourself, but you lose your essential perks, so then you might just go down again anyway, and it's just very strange to me. Something like Widow's Wine is a lot more interesting.
That's actually an interesting point. I've never really thought about it that way. Like well, and that's why I'm actually glad they switched it with in BO4 with having the revives baked into the player because quick revive should be a perk that revives other people
Yeah.
or revives your or rescinds your health up to normal, not rescind, but what's the word I'm looking for, just puts it back up to the normal level. And inside of BO3 and before, it was always just you bought it because you didn't want to go down. But if you're right, as soon as you go up, get revived, you have nothing, and you're pretty much in the same situation you were before, which is why you went down. So you better like scramble to get those perks again. So I do think they did a better job with. They've done a better job with quick revive in the BO4 and onward because it's actually a little bit more applicable to um having it's just better. There's better uses for it rather than just it being for reviving yourself. Having
Yeah.
self revives baked into the player is a good thing. Okay. Let's see. BO4 is unoriginal. The game has four, so this is point. No, actually I don't want to talk about that. Let's I'd actually like to hear some of your opinions about the maps in general because you don't talk about them too often. You
Yeah.
talk about the amount of quality of content that we have, like the budget, unoriginality, stuff like that. Voyage is really the only one you kind of talk about. Really, you talking about it being cramped and stuff. But I'm curious, what do you think about the maps in BO4, generally speaking?
Um, since you mentioned like the Voyage cramped thing or whatever, I I I actually thought about this like a little while ago. But I kind of find that Voyage isn't really any more cramped than like a lot of maps if you really look at all of the maps throughout the series. But I guess to move on from that, I so wait, what were you asking? Like my opinions on just the BO4 maps in general, I think.
Yeah, just how do you think they fare compared to some of the maps from BO3, even some of the maps we have now? Do you think it's more of the reason that they were good or bad is because of the systems in any of the games? Could they fit in other games? Like, how do you just feel about the map design in general? And do you think they would only work in BO4?
I think Dead of the Night would definitely not work very well in Black Ops 3, and I think I mentioned that in the post. But I find that the so BO4 for me, the reason it's like my favorite game is because of just the perks are more interactive. The game just kind of it just looks better, and the sound design is at least a little better. Um, the like equipment system and like spawning in with wraith fires and the fact that you can repair your shield and just how the guns feel and all of that, it kind of, and the AI as well, the fact that the AI is faster but they hit you less, it works really well on Dead of the Night where you have like the vampires and stuff, like you're kind of just fighting off like really fast zombies. But in Black Ops 3 it would just be it would be slower, but you would have more health, but you would also down even faster than you would on BO4 hardcore, which is just very strange for Dead of the Night to do that, because Dead of the Night is known to be like a fast, chaotic map, but if you slow it down, but then you remove all the BO4 perks and then make it to where the zombies down you faster, that would be incredibly bad, especially with how
Mm.
the Annihilator works. Um, but yeah, my to um to sort of summarize my opinions on the BO4 maps themselves, I'd say that I find four of the maps S tier, which being Ancient Evil, Dead of the Night, Blood of the Dead, and Voyage. And then I quite like Alpha Omega, but it's not anything special. Tog is decent, but it's bland. Nine, I think I share a similar opinion to you that I find it just kind of boring. I think you said something like that. Um, and Classified, I find Classified to be like a waste.
Really, I actually think Classified is one of the better maps. Let me put it this way: I would rather do an Easter egg, of course,
Yeah.
but I think if you just want to play zombies and grind camos and like just kind of fuck around, I think Classified is actually great. I think it's a really good representation of the BO4 mechanics. You can really test things out and kind of understand how the game works and see it a little bit more bare bones, which I do like. But yeah, I do think not. It's not that nine is bad, and if I and I guess boring is fair. It's just more like it's just it's just kind of like a Kino
Yeah.
for BO4. It's very it just defines kind of BO4 in a way.
It
And I don't
feels
always
like
want
a
to do that.
prelude to Ancient Evil. I always thought Ancient Evil was just like the cooler version of 9. Well, not real. It's like completely different, but like they have similar atmosphere and such, and like I just find that
That's
Ancient
true.
Evil is just, it's kind of like how with me I just find that like Alpha Omega compared to like Nuketown or Classified or Ascension or whatever, or like Origins against, I don't know, like I don't Kino or something. Just kind of like it's just like a better map in like every way.
Yeah. I mean, I think BO4 has a lot of S tier maps. There's nothing in there, just a lot of great maps. There's nothing in it that I play and I'm like, man, this sucks. Everything is really, really solid. Which is why I think it's the best zombies mode of all time. I uh, I am curious though. Let's talk about how the Helion Salvo and some of the weapon variety. Helion Salvo ruins the game's balance on hardcore. So that's the claim you're attacking. And then your reply is on hardcore. High round Helion camping strategies don't work past 41 or so. The Helion can only be obtained during the box. PhD is also needed for it. Um, the Helion is OP. Oh, actually, let's pause for just a quick second on this. There was a comment that you made that you should play the game on hardcore. And I do disagree with this for sure. Like, I think you should be able to play the mode as is. And I think curbing the difficulty up to kind of make the mode harder for people, I don't always think is like a good aspect of gameplay design. But you did kind of advocate for the hardcore position. Why do you feel that way?
I feel very strongly towards it. So I didn't play hardcore really like at all, even just like even a little bit, until maybe like half a year ago or something. Someone on Reddit, like some random guy, mentioned that hardcore is better on BO4 and that the game's balance makes more sense. And it this immediately intrigued me because of the fact that I felt like after I learned BO4, I strongly felt that the game was just kind of too chill and relaxed and laid back, and I was just kind of like, oh, just chilling there with the Wonder Weapon, and I'm just not even really playing a game at that point. But on hardcore, it makes the game more intense and engaging, especially on early rounds.
Interesting.
Once you get to round 5 or so, a 3-hit down works pretty well, but a 4-hit down is just really like is kind of just too much. There's also the fact that things like the perks like Winter's Wail, it activates when so in hardcore it activates right before you're about to go down. So if you get hit twice, Winter's Wail activates on all modes other than realistic, I think, which means that in hardcore you go down one hit after it activates, but in normal you have 2 hits after it activates, and then there's things like um Victorious Tortoise, where
Hmm.
in a 4-hit down it's just kind of weird. The only thing in the entire game I'd say is maybe not balanced in favor of a 3-hit down is maybe the Ancient Evil boss fight is too hard, and the I guess the Ancient Evil raw step. But I actually did the Ancient Evil raw step on a 3-hit down using just a Galil and the Pegasus strike, and it was solo, and
Yeah.
I was pretty proud of myself for that because I did
Yeah,
not
that
think
sounds
that was gonna
tough.
work.
It definitely sounds tough. So to kind of go back to the Heliant Salvo, and by the way, I don't know if you saw the timer pop up
Oh
on
yeah,
the thing. It says we have like 8 minutes. So if you want, when this ends, I can send you another
yeah, that's
meeting
fine.
and we can rejoin it. Okay. Um, so it does say that the you're talking about the Helion it being OP, and this has kind of been a point of contention in the community. And I do side with the community in this one, I think, because it really is just very easy to get out of the box. You just kind of sit there, hit it, you get it, you pack it, and then you're really just chilling. But it is boring. But I think people kind of rob themselves uh of the joy of just playing with like regular guns, like going into a boss fight without the Helion, because it's just it strips away so much of the fun. And but I can't fault people for doing it. Like I can't fault people for going for the easy path, for the path of least resistance. But if they would just pick up regular guns or use the regular wonder weapons or use like the core stuff that for how the game was designed, they would have a much better time. But I do think it is a little bit broken. But it sounds like you kind of feel a little bit differently about that.
I'm not really sure. I haven't read the I'm not really sure what I said about the Hellion Salva. I remember some of it. I do think it's definitely overpowered, like weirdly strong, and it's better than like a bunch of the wonder weapons. And
Do,
it
do you want me to read the post so you can
yeah, I guess
remember?
so.
Yeah. Let me read it and then we'll start the call over again. So you said that the Helion salvo ruins the game's balance. That's the claim that people are making. And your retort is on hardcore, high round Helion camping strategies don't work past 41 or so. The Helion can only be obtained via the box, and PhD is needed for it to be consistently very strong, especially on hardcore. If the Helion is OP, what about many of the wonder weapons that can be obtained via quests? A bunch of those can be obtained via the box as well. The Tundra gun is infinite damage version of the Helion. Why complain about the Helium when you could complain about the Hand of Charon, Magmagat, Tundra Gun, Thunder Gun, Kraken, Hand of Hemera, Hand of Ornos, the Mark II-V, the Annihilator, etc.? Why complain about a box only weapon that kind of needs PhD and needs to be papped 5 times? And this is kind of, I guess, where I circle back to the hardcore difficulty being the crux of that particular argument. And if you take that out and just put it back into regular, I think the community does have a better argument here. It's just like it's so much better than everything else.
Um, yeah, yeah. I didn't really explain myself that well in that post. So my view is that so basically what I was trying to do in the post is I was sort of pretty much my goal with the Hellion Salvo thing was I was sort of mitigating it. I was kind of like maybe like downplaying it. I even downplayed it a bit much. Um, but my point was that they kind of act like it completely ruins the game's balance.
Okay.
But my counter argument was, well, my counter argument was that a lot of the wonder weapons you can also get out of the box, and you can also get from a quest, and they a lot of them do infinite damage and such, and they don't need PhD and all that. Uh and so I like you're gonna use those wonder weapons anyway. So the Hellion is kind of on some maps and in some situations the Hellion is like a bit obsolete, especially on a map like I guess like Tog or whatever, where there's no silver bullets and you have the Tundra gun and such. You can just get the Tundra gun is like the second easiest wonder weapon of all time to obtain. Um, the reason I mentioned the hardcore thing is just because of the fact that in normal, um, you can get to like round infinity on Dead of the Night just by spamming it next to the silver bullet table. But when I was
Yeah, you
doing that
can.
on hardcore, you once you get to like round 40 or so, the Hellion salvo is completely unusable, and I just thought it was at least worth bringing up.
Sure. Yeah, that's fair. Okay, let's end this call. I'll send you another email here in a second.
All right.
Okay, we've talked about the Helion. We've talked about you know, Dead of the Night gaming experience. We've talked about the maps. Um, Now I kind of would just like to get oh crap. I had this written down. Oh, I would like to kind of get your take on this debate that's been going on in the community lately about like modern zombies versus classic zombies. And how World at War through BO3 versus Cold War through BO6, it's almost like two competing factions against each other trying to tear down, not tear down the zombies community, but they're just like they're pitted against each other, like saying that their side is the better side. And it's just so funny to me because I genuinely think that BO4 was the perfect game to bridge the two. I think that it was really catered to casuals in the sense of getting set up, doing a pack a punch quest, and being able to kill zombies, having a sense of progression with the 4-tier pack a punch system. But if players wanted to go an extra mile and really do some crazy quests, whether they're side Easter eggs with the spork knife or do a crazy boss fight, they could do that too. And it really allowed players to kind of have the best of both worlds while having this magnificent story, amazing, maps and set pieces and all sorts of cool stuff. But the entire community like rejected it at the time, and it feels like we're almost paying for it in a way because the way modern zombies is shaped up, it's it's just there's no decent story. The connection between the side Easter eggs and the story is not really there. There's no mystery anymore. And it kind of feels like, I mean, it's a little bit conspiratorial, I guess, but it kind of feels like we paid for it a little bit.
Um. Oh, so you wanted me to talk about like or what was it?
I don't know. What do you think about anything I just said?
Um. I guess I'd say I kind of view like BO3 and BO4 as like their own era. I don't really I do kind of agree that BO4 is like a little more like branching out towards BO6 style thing, but it's more of like a it's like a very in a very subtle way, like how the armor is like completely different. It's sort of like how BO6 like vaguely, very, very vaguely takes things from BO4 that weren't really like a staple in BO4. Uh
Like with perks or something?
yeah, what I mean by that is like how in BO4 cuz like BO6 has like the augment with the shield thing, and then it has like the dying wish augment,
Mm-hmm.
and it has armor, which BO4 like basically didn't even have armor effectively. Um and I guess like death perception is my favorite perk ever for some reason. I just
Wait,
wanted to mention
wait,
that.
what? Why?
Yeah.
I
The
need you to talk about that for a
if
second.
if you didn't know, it's actually a secret. So I earlier I said that Cold War and BO6 I really don't like. The only reason that Death Perception is in those games is because they wanted me to buy the game specifically. It's
I
not
got
any
it.
other
Yeah,
reason.
that makes sense. I
Because
heard that.
I'm the only Death Perception lover other than what is that guy's name? It's the British speedrunner. You probably know who that is. I don't know. Uh,
British speedrunner.
s- uh, his,
Codename Pizza.
it was it, it,
Freckleston.
oh yeah, Freckleston. Yeah, yeah. He loves Death Perception. I talked to him briefly in somewhere. Um, but yeah, oh yeah. So to elaborate on that, the reason I like Death Perception so much is, well, I like the name, I like the icon. I find it's pretty strong. It's not like overpowered at all. You can't really like abuse it very much. Um, I like the aesthetic of it, like the icon and just how the zombies look when you see them through the walls. Um, it's like it's an ability that you constantly have, and it lets you avoid the zombies through just kind of like seeing them, and they kind of like fade away. I think I don't know exactly how it works, but they're like not always there. They like fade and then come back sometimes. I don't really get it, but yeah, like you kind of have to just guess where they are based on their like outline through the walls. You can even see them through ceilings and floors, and it just makes the game a lot more different in a way that like other perks don't really do, other than like maybe like PhD and such. I don't know, but yeah, I just find it very aesthetically interesting, and it's very different.
Yeah, I don't hate Death Perception by any means. I guess I just don't find it very necessary because, well,
Yeah,
especially if you're playing solo, because the zombies are constantly coming toward you. So like in a game like BO4, for example, unless I don't think I would ever pick Death Perception unless I wanted it in my modifier because I know it does like extra damage to elite enemies or something like that. I think that's the modifier. And so if I always have zombies coming towards me and I always kind of know where the spawns are and I know how to check behind myself, it's like I kind of just don't find it to be super necessary. I guess it does kind of look cool. I think it's much more defined in BO4 than it is in BO6. But you know, I don't think it's like the worst perk of all time. I don't really like when Treyarch says, "Oh, we have a new content update, Death Perception." It's like, really? Like
yeah, I
there's
think it's kind of dumb.
that's kind of dumb for sure. But yeah, I guess let's kind of go back to what I was saying before about like BO4 being this bridge, this gap that bridges the two eras together. Um, because it really made a lot of those core systemic changes. But I really do think that it catered a lot towards casuals, and then it had like that hardcore aspect with the story and quests and everything that players could do if they chose to. Um, do you think that? Do you think that it was a do you think BO4 did bridge that gap and we kind of shot ourselves in the foot by complaining about stuff as a community? Or do you think they would have kind of gone away from that hardcore Easter egg stuff either way?
Um, Oh, before I answer that, one last thing about the Death Perception thing is whenever I said it's my favorite perk, I didn't mean that it's like the strongest perk. I think it's strong, but I'd say that Winter's Wail is like way stronger than like most of the perks in the game. But yeah, I just like it simply. But
That's fair.
to answer your question, I I don't know, cause like Blundell left and the Ether story ended like abruptly, and it was like just very strange. So I don't know, like I don't know if Blundell leaving had anything to do with BO4's reception or like the way the devs handled it or something. I assume it would have. Um uh do you know when Cold War was in development, or like I don't know.
The basically the way that everything went down was BO4 was in development. They wanted to make all these major changes. The game obviously had some issues. They got their budget slashed like halfway through development. Modern Warfare 2019 came out after that, and then Sledgehammer and Raven were working on the next Call of Duty, and then Treyarch got asked to take over development, and then they made Cold War. So Cold War was in they were like working on stuff like up after Black Ops 4 and up through Modern Warfare and through Modern Warfare 2019, but then they kind of took lead on the project and converted up whatever Sledgehammer and Raven were into zombies.
Um, okay, so yeah, I guess you saying it like that makes me it kind of just makes me think that if I had to guess, I assume that like that BO4 like cuz it had chaos, I guess they were like planning stuff and then when they were put on Cold War, they just abandoned chaos and just abandoned everything and just completely went to like the like kind of war zone type of thing and they just completely forgot about chaos and then they like I don't even know what they're doing with Black Ops 6 chaos. I don't really know the Black Ops 6 story at all.
There's not much to know. Um, yeah, I mean, I often wonder because of the reception towards chaos and knowing that Ether was gone. If and they kind of did it in a way that most people didn't like at the time. They thought, oh well, we have to kind of continue that story. Let's figure out a way to do that. Oh, they didn't like how everything was so tedious and convoluted in BO4, even though that increases replayability in my mind. Let's kind of simplify the systems. I do think it was a little bit of a reaction, but I also wonder if they wanted to kind of go for more of this in menu RPG esque system, generally speaking. Um, Actually, that is a good segue into point number 19 on your uh, post here. It says BO5 is bad because of BO4. Not sure how a difficult and hardcore game with lots of depth caused BO5 to be so easy. BO5 is like if you took a few things from BO4 and made an extremely easy AI generated game out of it. BO5 even has jug, speed color, and no perk limit. So I don't really, not really sure if I understand your position there. It actually sounds like you disagree with me. I'm not really sure.
Um oh wait, disagree with you on what? I don't know if I zoned out or not. Or like
Basically, I'm just not like I was basically saying, do you think, you know, Cold War and BO6 was a reaction to BO4?
uh
But it sounds like you didn't think that here. I'm not really sure.
I I guess what I would say is if people had like a harsher reaction cuz when Cold War released, people still kind of think this a little bit, I think, but when Cold War released and like a while after that, people kind of saw it as like zombies going back to like being good or something or like people will say oh it brought the community back, which I always thought was strange. And like people thought it was like people had like a positive opinion on it and I think if they didn't then they would have they would have like tried harder or maybe like reverted to previous things. I don't really know. I didn't really play much Cold War back then and I haven't really played it that much in general.
So did you just like stop being interested in zombies after BO4 or
um I So after BO4, like I barely played BO4 and I really liked Ancient Evil, but I didn't like BO3 or BO4 much until 2021. I really got into BO3 and I learned the maps more and I did the main quests and it was like the best time I've had in zombies. And then a little while after that, I got into BO4. So that was like 2021. I liked BO3 and then 2022 and 2023 was when I really got into BO4. Cold War, I always just kind of thought it was I just didn't really have any interest in it. Um
have you played all the maps and quests or just
the only thing I haven't done at all on it is I didn't really play Onslaught and I have not played a single match of Outbreak. I've done the main quests other than Forsaken. I've only played like 2 matches of Forsaken.
okay? So you do have some experience to at least compare BO3 and BO4 to Cold War in the modern era, and you played some of BO6, have you not?
Yeah, I haven't played much of BO6. I got like one gun gold. I I learned like some stuff from it. I haven't really played it recently, But the reason I just haven't played them much is because with like BO4, I like hated on it for years. Part of it was just I didn't even learn it and I didn't even have anybody to play with and it was unpopular. But with Cold War and Black Ops 6, I really just never, because yeah, I've mentioned multiple times that with BO4 there was Ancient Evil, which I thought was top tier like ever since release. With Cold War and such, I'm just like, when I try to like do like a tier list or something, like I've made like a couple tier list videos, I legit don't even know where to even put Cold War maps because I just kind of view them as about equal quality for me. I just find them very off-putting. Like something about Forsaken and Firebase Z and D Machina, like the aesthetics are just I don't know, like something about like the 19, what is it, like 80s 60s,
It's
uh
supposed to be the 80s.
yeah, like the weird like militaristic, like I don't know, like just the weird like military aesthetics I really don't like, and the like things like the exfilling and the operators and the radio. um it pretty much to put it into one sentence, Cold War and such is basically, instead of having just a zombies mode in a Call of Duty game, it's basically like you have it's like Call of Duty in, it's more Call of Duty than zombies was before that. It's like very like a militaristic kind of bland, vaguely supernatural type of thing. Like there's monsters and such, but it's not like something like Origins or Ancient Evil or Dead of the Night, where it's like it really leans heavily into like the mysterious stuff and like the dark and like scary stuff. Like there's nothing like the Deriza radios where it's like the dude getting locked in a teleporter in like a zombie dog and all that.
No, I definitely agree with that. I think it mostly has to do with the gameplay mechanics.
Yeah.
I just did a whole podcast on that with Donuts, so I'm not going to get into it here. But I want to push back a little bit, and I'm not trying to be a dick or put
Yeah, that's
you on the
fine.
spot or anything. But if you don't have a super in-depth experience with like Cold War, Vanguard, MWZ, or BO6, do you think that your title of BO4 is peak and the downfall zombies has come from rejecting it is a little um perhaps uninformed if we're not super if we haven't like if you haven't spent a lot of time on the modern era?
Yeah, I was thinking of that. So, um, like I think I do need to spend more time with Black Ops 6, which with Cold War I've kind of I gave up on that. Especially since Black Ops 6 is like almost the same. I might as well just stick with Black Ops 6 if I'm going to try that kind of stuff more. The issue that I have is every time I've played it, I've disliked it more. It's not
Cold
like
War or BO6 or both?
um both of them, but yeah, I after that incredible the Tomb video, I went back to Shattered Veil, or like I played Shattered Veil a little bit after it came out, and I was just like annoyed the whole time. Um a part of it is like the the most obvious issue for me with Black Ops 6 is the amount of derivative stuff in the game is like beyond parody. Some of it people don't even realize is derivative. Like the game is derivative in ways that I just like, it's like it sounds like a joke. It's sort of like how I pointed this out before Shattered Veil came out, but the fact that Shattered Veil does not have a yellow ray gun Mark II, because of the fact that the Beam Smasher is like kind of derivative of the ray gun Mark II V from Alpha Omega. They didn't put the yellow one in Shattered Veil because of that. So basically, we have two maps in Black Ops 6 that have wonder weapons that are derivative of Alpha Omega, which is like the most like notoriously derivative map of all time. And then there's like the Ice Staff in Origins slash Awakening from Extinction, and then in Terminus there's a boss fight that's incredibly similar to the Kraken from Mayday on Extinction. And then there's like the jet gun and Liberty Falls basically being a transit reimagining, but then there's also people that still want a transit remaster, which is really bizarre to me. Um, and then there's Citadel, which is less derivative, but the Wonder Weapons do the same thing other than their ultimate ability, and I don't really find the layout and the atmosphere that good. Um, it's basically, I view almost the entire game as heavily derivative, other than the layouts, pretty much.
Okay, fair enough.
Black Ops 4 is, but not most of the maps.
I mean, I again, I'm trying to like parts of what you're saying. I even agree with. I'm trying to I just want to argue back just to kind of make
Yeah, that's
aspects of
fine.
the conversation a little interesting because Black Ops 4, you could just say that about half of the game.
Yeah.
Um, Blood of the Dead's derivative of Mob of the Dead. The storyline is even derivative of Mob of the Dead in general. For Blood of the Dead specifically, about being trapped in a cycle, it plays on that entire theme. Um, Alpha Omega is derivative of Nuketown, and is derivative of all those ray guns, and same with the Wonder Weapons. So I what really says so basically, if I was you, which obviously I'm not, I would probably not use that as like a core argument as to why I dislike BO6, because I actually don't even mind having some reused things come inside of games. It just depends a lot about how the mechanics are implemented and how the quests design and narrative and Treyarch's communication, like all that kind of flows together to make me enjoy stuff. And I think because BO6, again, I said I wouldn't go here, but I am just going to dip my toe a little bit in these waters, since I think it has so much of their gameplay design inside of the menus rather than inside of the maps. I think it just makes the game less interesting overall. But I hear you, but I would probably try to figure out a way to refine that argument a little bit, because literally half of BO4 would be technically derivative, but for some reason it's like I I even agree with that, but I still think it's one of the best zombies games of all time, and I think it's because all the other stuff surrounding it, like the quests, the quest, the east side quests, the boss fights, the gameplay, the map art design, the story, the way Jason Blundell communicated, like the community, like all that stuff, I think comes together to bring such a strong offering that it's like, this is just so fucking cool. I want to be in these maps. I want to play this game. I want to be here. I want to be immersed in this world. And BO6, I think, fails on that quite a bit.
Um. So with the whole derivative thing, um, it's not just like, for me, it's not just the fact that it's derivative. It's that it's more derivative than BO4, because BO4 had Ancient Evil and Dead of the Night and Voyage and Nine, and even like the derivative stuff. They had like interesting like atmosphere, and just like they kind of like added things on, and like they were way different than the other maps, and that was only half the game. But with BO6 so far, the only map that, like, the most original maps are Terminus and Citadel. Um and like Citadel is definitely like original enough. There's not really anything derivative about it really. But with Terminus, it just kind of comes off as weird, because I didn't think this at first, but it has like very similar aesthetics to Zetsubo, and then it has the Manglers, and then it has the Parasites, and it also has like a form of spiders. They're not the same as the Zetsubo spiders, but yeah. And then there's the yellow laser weapon that also slows down the zombies, which is like the Reagan Mark II V. Like, I guess Terminus is kind of original enough, but like when you only have two maps that are like sort of original enough, and then the rest of it is, well, what I was gonna say before, at the start of my point was, I was gonna make the point that it's not just that it's derivative; it's that it takes from completely random things that are completely unrelated and mashes them together in like it's incoherent. It's not just derivative; it's like artistically, narratively, like aesthetically incoherent, like how they have origins with an ice staff, but there's no other staves, and it doesn't have anything to do with anything. But then there's also this Sentinel artifact boss fight, and then there's the dude from Vanguard, and then there's the area that's like Awakening from Extinction, and it's just like I don't even know like what the game is even trying to be. It's not like Ancient Evil where it's like, oh, here's Perseus, here's Pegasus, here's like Bruno and stuff, and you can't play as operators. Like in BO6, my main point against it is like you're playing as Brutus using an ice staff with a green camo on it, running around in a map that's vaguely kind of like Origins, sort of, but also like vaguely like kind of looks like Awakening. And then there's a Sentinel artifact boss fight, and it's extremely, extremely off putting to me, like very immediately.
Oh, I agree that there are aspects of the story and stuff that are incoherent, but I just think that these same arguments could be applied to other games. Like in BO4, I could say, well, I'm running around with as Richtofen with face paint in a
Yeah.
unicorn GK5. And so like I think COD's always had an element of some of that stuff, but I do think BO6's story is largely incoherent, and I think that's the strongest part of your argument. It's not really the derivative nature of things because COD's always been derivative of itself. It's always been reiterating on the last game or the last few games and pulling nostalgia. I remember in BO4, or excuse me, in BO3, when everybody was like psyched that the Galil was coming back or the M16 was coming back, and I was too. But then they did it in BO4, and then they did it in Cold War, and then they did it in they're doing it now, and so it's like it's. I think the COD as a whole. I don't necessarily think this is like a zombies problem. I think this is just like a Call of Duty problem where they're derivative of themselves, and every single season, every single DLC cycle is just we're getting the same things that we've already gotten for every other game since the dawn of time or the dawn of the franchise. And I think that just kind of lends itself to feeling stale. And then on top of that, you have a boring story. You have gameplay that's, in my opinion, heavily emphasized in the menus and not inside of the map, so where you can extrapolate cool secrets and pull apart the map and destroy it from the inside out to your benefit, feeling like an escape room kind of vibe. I think there's like so many little things that kind of are hurting COD right now that are now bleeding into zombies, whereas before, despite how MP was, despite how campaign was, despite how Blackout or Warzone was, Warzone's probably not the greatest argument, but just despite how the other modes were faring, zombies still always kind of doing its own thing, and now it's getting affected by the entire um, you know infrastructure that is Call of Duty.
Um. Uh. Not really sure what to say.
I mean, you don't have to say anything. Is there
Yeah.
anything you'd like to respond to um, about your post? The last thing that I think that I wanted to kind of cover was just this comment in the post that said, it's fine to change your mind, which was referring to like how you
Oh
used
yeah, I
to
remember
dislike
this.
BO4, but you don't have to be this much of a dick about it.
Yeah.
I think that's a good point to end on. What would you have to say to people? Because I think that was like a common thread is even when I was talking with B-Rad and Jolts, they kept saying like that you were being like kind of rude or whatever. And I don't think being rude is an argument. Like somebody, if I was gonna you know, if somebody was going to murder somebody, I would, and I like yelled at them and I was rude about it. It's like, well, who cares? Like, you got to stop. You got to stop the person from doing something. It doesn't matter if you're rude. So I don't think tone policing is very helpful. It's not an argument. So I would love to know, like, what's your reply to people who think you're being a dick?
I think I when I was watching when I was watching your video, I was worried that there would be like a bunch of times where I was being like way too harsh or like over dramatic or something. I can't really remember much of anything of me being rude. I really don't know. There was like I get like I'm like snarky at some points, like when I said that like in relation to the point of like, oh, you can't switch out your perks in BO4, I said feel free to down yourself in BO3 to switch out your perks. If you don't have quick revive, you like die out. Like I was like snarky. I don't really remember being rude. I've been rude to people online, like in different posts or like in different comments like a while ago, but I'm not really sure. But being rude, uh in some instances I would say being rude is fine if someone is being um like genuinely like really annoying, or they're just making a really bad point in kind of in bad faith. There's this thing that gamers in general, especially like COD fans and such, where they'll use the term objectively or they'll use the term subjectively. Like this happens all the time. Like the term subjective means that it's your own experience, and objective means that it's a truth, like a thing that exists beyond your own experience. And people will say like, "Oh, Call of the Dead is objectively a better map than Voyage or something." Like they say the word objective as though they think objective means reasonable or like well reasoned or has any kind of like rationale or like thought behind it. But in reality, objective just means that it's actually true independently of what you think of it. And people just keep insisting on like on like claiming that their own opinion is better than other people's opinions because they just call it objective, like as if they're being more fair or something. There's also the fact that like what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, people will also respond to me saying that I talk as though everything I'm saying is like a fact, or they'll say that it's just my opinion, but I'm already aware of that. But they're the ones kind of acting as though stating an opinion is a fact, but they're accusing me of acting like my opinion is a fact when they're the one saying like it, acting like I don't know if you get what I mean really.
No, I understand. I'm just listening.
Yeah. Um.
No, I understand that. I will say that like as people, we are allowed to agree on something that is subjective and then claim it's an objective standard that we can claim other things, like measure other things too. So if like everybody wants to say like BO3, I'm just using as an example. BO3 is the best Call of Duty, so we want to use that as our standard to measure everything else by. Then we could just say, okay, well, this is going to be our like objective standard. Even though the foundation of it is subjective, we can just utilize it as a measuring point of foundation, if you will. So but I understand what you're saying. It's like people do tend to mix things up. They'll just because something came out 10 years ago or 15 years ago, they think it's like classic or where the mode came from, that means it is an objective standard. And if not everybody agrees upon it, then it cannot be. So I totally do get it, but I just thought you would want to respond to that and just talk to the people who say, you know, like this guy, you immediately start from a high horse. You're convinced you have a better understanding of the game than people who disagree with you because you have some opinions and discuss mechanics on a game that used to hate yourself. I will say, I don't think a lot of people do understand like game design and stuff like that. And I don't claim to understand it perfectly, but I do think I understand things pretty well. And that's okay. I don't think everybody has to really understand stuff. They're still entitled to their opinions, but I thought the tone policing argument was kind of a common retort for some of your opinions, and I think that was um, I thought
Um.
that was just kind of silly.
One thing that kind of reminded me of is that like comment or whatever you were reading. Um. Oh yeah. The thing about like me saying, or like the guy saying that I'm acting like other people don't understand the game. I did explicitly say in the post early on that like a lot of people, or like that I have like a good understanding of the game, and like a lot of people don't have a good understanding of the game. And like I really think that's true, and like the reason I said that is because, well, other than people not understanding the maps and stuff, like there are a lot of things that people just don't get about the game, like the fact that there's infinite sprint makes the whole like the like slide canceling, or like the slide jumping thing, like irrelevant. But people will say that you can't slide jump as much in BO4, but it has infinite sprint, but they don't know that. And then
Yeah.
there's also the fact that they don't, a lot of people probably don't even know that the game has co-op pausing. And then one of the main things is uh I can't remember what it was. Oh yeah, it was the AI thing where people don't like understand what the AI is like, or like they'll, or like Jug as well, where they'll say that Jug should be in BO4, but the thing about that is if you add Jug into BO4, like so if I play on a 3-hit down, this would go in line with a 4-hit down as well. But if I'm playing on a 3-hit down and Jug exists in the game, that would mean that I would spawn in with a 2-hit down, and then it would increase to a 3-hit down because a 4-hit down wouldn't make sense to me. So I would basically start off with a 2-hit down, and then Juggernog would give me a 1-hit down. So I would pretty much be sacrificing a slot every single game in order to get one extra hit of health, even though it
Yeah.
wouldn't really do anything for the early rounds, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Just the way the game is balanced, like Jug just doesn't even make sense. That's why they had to bake it into the player. So I no, I think I get it, man. I agree with you on a lot of the points. Um, I tried to push back against some of your arguments where I could. I thought it was a good discussion. I just thought, I'm talking about you on my podcast. I'm putting words in your mouth probably in some instances, and so I just wanted to give you a chance to defend your positions, to let people hear you out, to let people hear your side of the story. So um, I appreciate your time, and thanks for coming on, and hopefully we can talk again in the future.
Yeah, I'd be fine with that.
Cool, man. All right. Well, I hope you have a good rest of your day, and I'll talk to you later.
You as well. Have a good day.
Take care, brother. Bye.
Oh yeah. Well, that went interestingly well. Oh yeah. Why do I say that? Um, yeah, we covered a lot of stuff. I'm glad I shoved the Jug thing in there right at the end. I didn't expect him to really agree with that, because whenever in his video, I thought that he didn't understand the whole like anti-Jug point. But yeah, at the end there, he seemed to like get it or agree. I assume, I don't know if he was like, I don't know. I guess he was genuine about about that last thing. But yeah, um, yeah, I don't know. Those pretty chill. I guess I'll just end this right here.